I am 26, a female, and my sister always believed I was going nowhere. She made sure everyone else believed it too. The night it all came crashing down was supposed to be her night, a celebration of her success. Her promotion party was held at a ridiculously fancy rooftop bar, the kind with tiny appetizers that cost more than my weekly groceries and cocktails with smoke coming out of them. I stood in a corner, nursing a glass of water, feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's glamorous life. My sister, Clara, was the center of it all, of course. She wore a glittering red dress that seemed to pull all the light in the room towards her. She moved through the crowd with an easy confidence I had never possessed, accepting congratulations, laughing a little too loudly, her hand always possessively on her boyfriend's arm. Our parents were there, beaming with a pride so intense it was almost painful to watch. They had always seen Clara as their shining star, the one who would achieve everything they had ever dreamed of. My father clapped men on the back, boasting about his brilliant daughter, the new senior marketing director. My mother floated around, adjusting Clara's hair, telling anyone who would listen how Clara had been a leader since she was in kindergarten. I was just there, the quiet, awkward younger sister who worked a boring, remote data entry job for some faceless corporation. At least, that's what they all thought. Clara eventually made her way to the small, makeshift stage at the front of the room. She tapped a glass with a spoon, the tinkling sound cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her, their faces expectant and admiring. "I just want to thank you all for coming," she began, her voice smooth and practiced. "This promotion means the world to me. It's been a long road, with a lot of hard work, but I finally made it." She went on for a few minutes, thanking her team, her mentors, her boyfriend. Then, her eyes found me in the corner. A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. It was the same smile she'd given me my whole life, right before she was about to push me off the swing or tell our parents a lie that would get me grounded. "I also want to thank my family for their support," she continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "My parents, who always believed in me, and even my little sister," she gestured vaguely in my direction. A few people turned to look at me, their expressions a mixture of pity and curiosity. "She's always been the creative one," Clara said, and a few of her friends snickered. It was her code for unemployed and useless. "She reminds me that not everyone is cut out for the corporate grind. And that's okay. We need people to do the other jobs, the simple jobs." My face grew hot. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I could feel my parents' awkward, apologetic stares from across the room. They weren't apologizing to me. They were apologizing to the guests for my existence. Clara wasn't finished. She raised her glass higher. "So, I want to make a toast. To my sister. Even though she's stuck in a dead-end job, probably entering numbers into a spreadsheet in her pajamas all day, she came out tonight to support me. Let's hear it for her." It takes a special kind of courage to show up when you're a professional loser. The room erupted, not in gasps of shock, but in laughter. Loud, hearty laughter. Her friends, her colleagues, even some people I didn't know, they all laughed. They thought it was a joke, a bit of light-hearted sibling ribbing. But I knew Clara. I knew the venom behind her words. I stood there, frozen, the sound of their amusement washing over me like acid. My own sister had just called me a loser in front of 100 people, and they were all laughing. All of them. Except for one man. He was standing near the stage, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't even smiled. His expression was one of cold, quiet fury. He was older, maybe in his late 50s, with graying hair and an air of authority that made him stand out even in a room full of ambitious professionals. I recognized him vaguely. He was the big boss, the one Clara was always trying to impress. Mr. Thompson, the CEO of her company's parent corporation. He took a deliberate step forward, his eyes fixed on Clara. The laughter died down as people noticed his stony expression. The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Clara's smile faltered. "Mr. Thompson?" she asked, her voice suddenly small. "Is everything okay?" Mr. Thompson didn't look at her. His gaze was locked on me. He took another step, and then he spoke, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of command that silenced the remaining whispers. "You mean the dead-end job where she's my vice president of strategic analysis?" he asked, his voice echoing in the stunned silence. The world seemed to stop. Every eye in the room swiveled from him to me. Clara's face went completely white, her mouth hanging open in a perfect, silent "oh" of disbelief. My parents looked like they had been struck by lightning. The glass in Clara's hand trembled, and for a glorious, terrible second, I thought she was going to drop it. The silence stretched on, thick with confusion and shock. No one knew what to say. The laughter had vanished, replaced by a palpable, suffocating awkwardness. Mr. Thompson's eyes were still on me, but there was a flicker of something new in them. It looked like a question, an apology, and an offer of support all at once. My own shock was a roaring in my ears. I hadn't wanted anyone to know, especially not like this. My job was my sanctuary, the one part of my life that Clara hadn't been able to touch or tarnish. I had kept the details vague, allowing my family to believe I was a low-level administrator because it was easier than dealing with Clara's inevitable jealousy and sabotage. I had told them I worked for a large tech conglomerate, which was true. I just omitted the part where it was the same conglomerate that owned the trendy marketing firm where Clara worked. I was 2 levels above her boss's boss. Clara finally found her voice, though it came out as a strangled squeak. "Vice President? You're joking, right?" she asked, looking desperately at Mr. Thompson. She works from home. She wears sweatpants. She's my sister," as if that last part was proof enough that it couldn't be true. "I assure you, I am not joking," Mr. Thompson said, his tone icy. "Your sister is one of the most brilliant analysts I have ever had the privilege of working with. The data models she built are the foundation of the entire Q4 strategy for this company. Your company," he paused, letting the words sink in. "The strategy that just got you your promotion." The color drained completely from Clara's face. She looked like she was going to be sick. Her boyfriend, who had been beaming beside her moments before, took a half step away from her, his expression unreadable. My parents were staring at me, their faces a comical canvas of confusion, shock, and a dawning, horrified understanding. The pride they'd had for Clara moments ago was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite decipher. It looked like shame. I felt a sudden, sharp need to get out of there. I couldn't breathe. The air was too thick with everyone's shock and my sister's public humiliation. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt exposed. I gave Mr. Thompson a small, grateful nod, a silent thank you, for defending me. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I walked slowly, deliberately, through the crowd of silent, staring people. I could feel their eyes on my back. I didn't look at my parents. I didn't look at Clara. I just kept walking until I reached the elevator. As the door slid shut, the last thing I saw was my sister's face, frozen in a mask of utter devastation. The party was over. The elevator ride down felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against the cool metal walls to steady them. The silence was a relief after the noise and tension upstairs. What just happened? 1 minute I was the family joke, the next I was a vice president. It didn't feel real. It felt like a scene from a movie, not my life. When the doors opened to the lobby, I walked straight out into the cool night air and didn't stop until I was a block away. I finally hailed a cab, my mind a complete blank. The ride home was a blur. I sat in the back of the taxi, watching the city lights streak by, my phone buzzing incessantly in my purse. I knew it was them. Clara. My parents. I ignored it. I couldn't talk to them. Not yet. What would I even say? What would they say? "Sorry we thought you were a failure your entire life. Sorry your sister built her career on your secret work while publicly mocking you for it." When I got back to my small, quiet apartment, the one Clara always called sad, I locked the door and leaned against it, finally letting out the breath I felt like I'd been holding all night. The silence of my own space was a comfort. This was my world, the one I had built for myself, away from their judgment. I had my books, my comfortable couch, and my powerful work computer in the corner. This was where I wasn't Clara's little sister, this was where I was me. My journey to this job, my dead-end job, had been a quiet rebellion. After college, Clara had immediately jumped into the high-powered world of marketing. She got a flashy job at a downtown firm, rented a stylish apartment, and started collecting expensive shoes. She was living the life our parents had always envisioned for one of their children. I, on the other hand, had drifted. I took a few low-stress administrative jobs, saved my money, and tried to figure out what I wanted. Clara and my parents saw this as a lack of ambition. They saw me as lost. "You need to get serious about your life," my mother would say over Sunday dinners. "Look at your sister. She has a 5-year plan." "Maybe you could ask Clara if there are any openings at her firm," my father would suggest. "Maybe an assistant position or something, to get your foot in the door." The thought of working under Clara, of being subjected to her constant criticism and condescension every single day, was my own personal version of hell. So I smiled and said I was looking into it, while secretly applying for jobs far away from her world. I had always been good with numbers, with patterns, with seeing the story hidden in a mountain of data. It was a skill no one in my family valued. It was quiet, internal work, not flashy, like Clara's marketing campaigns. I found a listing for a quantitative analyst at a large, unassuming tech holding company called Omnicorp. The description was vague, but intriguing. It was a remote position, which was perfect. I applied, not expecting much. To my surprise, I got an interview, then a second, then a skills test, which I aced. They offered me the job. The pay was good, better than I expected. I took it. For the first year, it was exactly what Clara imagined in a way. I worked from home in my pajamas. I analyzed data sets. I built predictive models. But the work was fascinating. I was good at it, really good. I found inefficiencies in supply chains that saved the company millions. I identified emerging market trends that led to wildly successful new ventures. My quiet work was having a loud impact, even if no one in my personal life knew it. My immediate supervisor, a man named David, was impressed. He started giving me more complex projects. Soon, I was reporting directly to him. Then, about 6 months ago, David was poached by a competitor. His position, Director of Analytics, was open. I applied, but I was sure they'd hire someone from outside. A week later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this her?" A deep voice on the other end asked. "This is she," I replied, confused. "This is Robert Thompson, CEO of Omnicorp," the voice said. "Your name has come across my desk several times. Your work is remarkable. The director position is yours if you want it. But I have something else in mind. I'm creating a new division, strategic analysis, that will report directly to me. I want you to run it. As vice president." I was so stunned I almost dropped the phone. Vice president? Me? I was 26 years old. I had been with the company for less than 2 years. It felt impossible. But Mr. Thompson was serious. He said he didn't care about age or tenure. He cared about results. And my results, he said, spoke for themselves. I accepted, of course. My life changed overnight. My salary quadrupled. My responsibilities were immense. I was now in charge of a team, overseeing the core strategic direction for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And no one in my family knew. I tried to tell them once. I had gone over for our weekly family dinner. Clara was going on and on about a new client her firm had landed. It was a subsidiary of Omnicorp, a fact I found quietly ironic. "It's a huge deal," she bragged. "We're handling their entire summer campaign. The CEO of Omnicorp himself is supposedly going to be at the launch party." "That's wonderful, dear," my mother said, beaming. She turned to me. "Anything new with your little job?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, yes. I got a promotion." "Oh, that's nice," my father said, barely looking up from his newspaper. "Did they give you a raise?" "Yes," I said. "It's a big promotion. I'm a vice president now." Clara choked on her wine. After a moment of coughing, she started laughing. It was a loud, ugly sound. A vice president?
Of what?
The Don't Forget to Water the Office Plants Committee?
Come on.
Be serious. Did you get a new title? Like Senior Data Associate? No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. It's Vice President of Strategic Analysis. My parents exchanged a look. It was a look of pity. They thought I was making it up, trying to compete with Clara. That's a very impressive title, my mother said in a placating tone, the kind you use with a child who is telling a tall tale. Well, we're proud of you for trying so hard. VP, Clara snorted, wiping her eyes. Oh, that's hilarious. You're hilarious. I gave up. It was easier to let them believe what they wanted.
It protected me.
It kept my professional life, the one place where I was respected and valued, safe from their judgment and Clara's poison. I just let them think I was still a junior analyst, tapping away at my keyboard. The VP title became a running joke for Clara. Whenever I mentioned work, she'd say something like, "Ooh, careful, the vice president is speaking," or "got a big VP meeting about spreadsheets today." Now, sitting in my quiet apartment, the silence was deafening. The lie of omission had been blown wide open in the most public and spectacular way possible. My phone buzzed again, dragging me back to the present. It was a text from my mother. "We need to talk.
Call me."
We're so confused. I stared at the message.
Confused.
That was the word she chose. Not sorry, not shocked, not horrified that her daughter had publicly savaged her other daughter. Just confused. I turned the phone over and laid it face down on the coffee table. I wasn't ready to talk. I needed to think. The events of the night replayed in my head. Clara's smug face. The laughter. Mr. Thompson's voice cutting through it all. And then the look on Clara's face when she realized the professional loser she was mocking was a key architect of the very success she was celebrating. The strategy that got her promoted. A cold realization started to dawn on me. Was it just a coincidence? Or was there something more to it? My mind flashed back to a conversation from a few weeks ago. Clara had called me, which was unusual. She never called just to chat. "Hey," she'd said, her voice overly friendly. "I have a quick work question. You're good with all that data stuff, right?" "I guess," I had replied cautiously. "My company is trying to figure out our strategy for the next quarter. We're a subsidiary of this huge, boring company called Omnicorp, and they're being super secretive about their overall direction. It's making it impossible for us to plan. Do you know anything about them? Have you heard any buzz in the tech world?" At the time, I had thought it was an innocent question. I gave her a vague, non-committal answer. I told her I'd heard they were focusing on expanding into new markets, but I didn't give her any specifics. I didn't mention that I was the one writing the expansion plan. "New markets, huh?" she had said, her voice thoughtful. "Interesting. Any idea which ones?" "No idea," I had lied. "It's all just rumors." Looking back on it now, her questions felt different. They felt pointed. Probing. Had she suspected something? Or was she trying to pry information out of me? The idea seemed paranoid, but after tonight, I wasn't so sure. My sister had always been competitive, but this felt like something else. Something darker. She hadn't just been belittling my job. She had been actively trying to use my little knowledge to her advantage, all while planning to humiliate me at her party. The pieces were starting to click into place, forming a picture that was uglier than I could have imagined. I had been so focused on protecting myself from her mockery that I hadn't realized she might have been trying to exploit me as well. I picked up my phone again. I ignored the texts from my family and opened my work email. I started searching for any correspondence that mentioned Clara's firm. I needed to know how deep this went. The night was far from over. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. My first step was to call my best friend, Maya. She was the only person who knew the truth about my job. I had told her everything a few months ago, and she had been sworn to secrecy. She picked up on the first ring. "Oh my God," she said, her voice a mix of awe and fury. "I just got off the phone with our friend Jessica, who was at the party. She told me everything. Are you okay? Do you want me to come over and burn Clara's entire wardrobe? I let out a shaky laugh. Tempting, but no. I don't know what I am. Stunned, mostly. I cannot believe she did that. Maya raged. In front of everyone. And then for your CEO to just drop that bomb? It's like a movie. Jessica said you could hear a pin drop. She said Clara looked like she'd seen a ghost. She did, I said quietly. The ghost of her career. Maybe I told Maya about the phone call from a few weeks ago, how Clara had been asking about Omnicorp's strategy. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Wait a minute, Maya said slowly. You're telling me she was fishing for information from you? The person writing the strategy? And then she had the nerve to call you a loser for it. That's what it looks like, I said, the ugly truth of it solidifying as I spoke the words aloud. I thought she was just being her usual condescending self. But now it feels calculated. Like she was using me. Using you is an understatement, Maya said, her voice sharp. She was exploiting you for insider information to get herself a promotion, and then she was going to use that same promotion to rub your face in the dirt. That's not just mean, that's sociopathic. Hearing Maya say it made it feel more real. It wasn't just my paranoia. Clara's actions had a clear, manipulative pattern. What do I do, Maya? My parents are blowing up my phone. They're confused. Maya snorted. Confused about what? How they managed to raise one daughter who is a brilliant undercover executive and another who is a backstabbing monster. Yeah, I'd be confused too. Don't answer them. Not yet. You hold all the cards right now. You need to figure out what you want. She was right. For the first time in my life, I had power in my relationship with my family. They were the ones off balance, not me. I needed to use this moment carefully. I need to know more, I told Maya. I need to understand exactly what she did. It feels like there's more to it than just that one phone call. Okay, detective, Maya said, her tone supportive. What's your first move? I looked at my computer screen, where my work email was still open. I'm going to start digging. There has to be a paper trail. After I hung up with Maya, I spent the next few hours combing through my emails and internal company documents. It was slow, tedious work. I searched for Clara's name, her company's name, the names of her team members that she had mentioned over the years. At first, I found nothing. All the major strategy documents were on a secure server with restricted access. There was no way Clara could have gotten to them. But then I widened my search. I started looking at lower-level communications, internal memos, departmental newsletters, transcripts from town hall meetings. And that's when I found it. It was a memo from the marketing department of one of our other subsidiaries, a completely different company from Clara's. The memo was about a cross-promotional campaign they were planning. And attached to it was a list of external marketing agencies they were consulting with. Clara's firm was on the list. And next to her firm's name was a contact person, Clara. My heart started to beat a little faster. This was a connection, but it wasn't proof of anything sinister. It just meant her company worked with other parts of Omnicorp. But it was a thread. I followed it. I searched for any communication between that subsidiary and Clara. I found a chain of emails. They were discussing the campaign. It was all standard, boring stuff. Until I got to the last email in the chain. It was from Clara to a marketing manager named Paul. She was asking him a question. Hey Paul, she wrote. Quick question for you. I know you guys are closer to the mothership than we are. Any idea what the big strategic push is for Q4? My team is trying to get ahead of the curve and align our proposals with Omnicorp's grand vision, but HQ is being tight-lipped. Any little hints would be a huge help. Paul's reply was brief. Sorry, Clara, I'm in the dark too. They're keeping that stuff under wraps, even from us. I heard a rumor it has something to do with emerging markets, but that's all I know. My blood ran cold. It was the same lie I had told her. Emerging markets. She had taken the vague hint I had given her and was using it to fish for more information from other people within the corporation. She was trying to piece together the puzzle. She was using my name, my reputation, my work, without my knowledge. She had presented a marketing plan based on the scraps of information she had managed to gather, a plan that was just similar enough to my real strategy that it impressed her bosses. They thought she was a visionary, a genius who was perfectly in sync with the parent company's direction. In reality, she was a fraud. She had cheated. The betrayal was a physical blow. It was one thing to be mocked and belittled. It was another thing entirely to have my hard work stolen and used against me. She hadn't just insulted me. She had committed a serious ethical breach. This could get her fired. It could get her blacklisted in the industry. I leaned back in my chair, my mind reeling. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my father. "Your mother is very upset. You need to call us and explain this. It's not fair to leave us in the dark. What is going on?" Not fair to them. The absurdity of it was almost funny.
They weren't worried about me.
They weren't angry at Clara for what she did. They were upset that their neat, tidy worldview had been shattered. They were upset that they had been made to look like fools for backing the wrong horse. I typed back a short, simple reply. I have nothing to explain. Clara, on the other hand, has a lot to answer for. I turned the phone off. I wouldn't be talking to them tonight. I wouldn't be talking to anyone. I needed to think. I had the proof. I had an email chain showing Clara was trying to get insider information. It was circumstantial, but combined with what happened at the party, it was damning. What did I want? That was the question Maya had asked. Did I want revenge? Did I want to see Clara fired and disgraced? A part of me, the part that had been hurt and humiliated for years, screamed yes. I wanted her to feel a fraction of the shame I had felt tonight. But another part of me hesitated. She was still my sister. Ruining her career felt extreme. Was there another way? A way to make her understand the gravity of what she had done without completely destroying her life. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the sleeping city. The anger was still there, a hot coal in my chest. But underneath it, there was a deep, profound sadness. This wasn't just about a job or a promotion. This was about my family. It was about a lifetime of being made to feel small, of having my successes ignored and my failures magnified. Clara's actions were just the logical conclusion of the family dynamic our parents had created. They had pitted us against each other, always comparing, always judging. Clara had learned that the only way to win was to make sure I lost. Tonight, she had miscalculated. She had tried to make me lose on a stage that was bigger than she realized. And in doing so, she had given me all the power. The question was, what was I going to do with it? I knew one thing for sure. The dynamic in my family was going to change. Starting now. The days of me being the quiet, accommodating sister were over. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. The anger and shock had cooled overnight, solidifying into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't going to let this go. I deserved an apology, a real one, not just from Clara but from my parents as well. And I needed to make sure something like this never happened again. I decided to start with someone neutral, someone outside the immediate blast zone of my family's drama. I thought of my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister. She had always been kind to me, in a distant sort of way. She was level-headed and didn't play favorites like my parents did. I needed an outside perspective. I called her around mid-morning. She answered on the second ring. "Hello, dear," she said, her voice warm. "It's lovely to hear from you. How are you?" "I'm okay, Aunt Carol," I said. "Listen, I'm calling because something happened last night, and I think you're going to hear about it soon if you haven't already. I wanted you to hear my side of it first." I then proceeded to tell her everything. I told her about Clara's toast, the laughter, and Mr. Thompson's intervention. I didn't embellish or get overly emotional. I just stated the facts as they had occurred. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Oh, my," Aunt Carol finally said, her voice heavy. "Oh, my dear. That's just awful. I am so sorry you had to go through that." Her simple, genuine sympathy was so different from my mother's panicked confusion that it almost made me cry. "But I have to say," she continued, a note of wonder in her voice, "Vice President? Of the whole corporation? That's incredible. Why on earth did you keep that a secret?
You know how Clara is, I said.
And you know how Mom and Dad are. They would have either not believed me or it would have turned into some horrible competition. It was just easier to keep it to myself. Easier for you, maybe, Aunt Carol said thoughtfully. But it allowed them to continue on with their fantasy version of the world, where Clara is the golden child and you're the one who needs looking after. You see what I mean? By hiding your success, you were, in a way, enabling their behavior. Her words hit me hard because they were true. I had been trying to protect myself, but in doing so, I had allowed the toxic dynamic to fester. I had let them define me. I think your mother and father are in shock, Aunt Carol went on. They've built their whole identity around Clara's success. This news, and the way it came out, has completely upended their narrative. They don't know how to react because they've never had to see you as powerful before. So what do? I asked, my voice small. You hold your ground, she said firmly. You don't rush to make them feel better. You don't downplay your achievements to soothe their egos. You let them sit with their discomfort. They owe you an apology. A massive one. Don't you dare let them off the hook. Her advice was empowering. It was the permission I needed to stop worrying about their feelings and start focusing on my own. We talked for a little while longer, and she promised she would call my mother later to, as she put it, talk some sense into her. After hanging up with my aunt, I felt stronger. I had an ally. Now it was time to move on to the next phase of my plan. I needed more than just the email I had found. It was a good start, but Clara could probably explain it away as an innocent attempt at synergy or some other corporate buzzword. I needed something undeniable. Something that would prove her intent was malicious. My mind went back to the marketing manager from the email, Paul. He worked at a different subsidiary, but he was still part of the Omnicorp family. He had shut down Clara's attempt to get information from him. That suggested he had a sense of professional ethics. Maybe he would be willing to talk to me. Finding his contact information was easy through the company directory. The hard part was figuring out what to say. I couldn't just call him up and accuse my sister of corporate espionage. I had to be subtle. I decided to use my new title as leverage. I drafted a careful email. Subject: Interdepartmental Strategy Alignment. Dear Paul, my name, and I'm the VP of Strategic Analysis here at Omnicorp HQ. I'm currently conducting a review of our internal communication protocols regarding sensitive strategic information. It has come to my attention that there may have been some attempts by external partners to solicit confidential data from our subsidiary teams. I saw your name on a communication chain from a few weeks ago with Clara, my last name from her firm. Could you spare 15 minutes for a brief, confidential call to discuss this? I want to ensure our teams are equipped to handle these kinds of requests appropriately. Best regards, my name, VP, Strategic Analysis, Omnicorp. It was formal, a little intimidating, and vague enough that it didn't give anything away. I was using my corporate power to investigate my own sister. It felt strange and a little thrilling. I hit send and waited. Less than an hour later, I got a reply. Of course. I am available to speak this afternoon. Please let me know what time works for you. We scheduled a call for 2 p.m. I spent the next few hours preparing. I reread the email chain between him and Clara. I thought about what questions to ask. My heart was pounding. This felt like a huge step. I was crossing a line, moving from being a victim to actively seeking out the truth. At exactly 2 p.m., my phone rang. It was Paul. Hello, this is Paul, he said, his voice professional and a little nervous. Hi, Paul. Thank you for making the time, I said, trying to keep my own voice steady and authoritative. As I mentioned in my email, I'm just doing an internal review. The email exchange you had with Clara, my last name, was flagged by our system. Can you tell me a little bit about your interactions with her? It wasn't much, Paul said. Her firm is a vendor for us on a small project. She reached out to me, asking about the parent company's Q4 strategy. It struck me as a bit odd. It was a very forward question for a vendor to ask. How so? I prodded gently. Well, for one, that kind of information is highly confidential, he explained. We don't share it with external partners, especially not in a casual email. And second, the way she asked, it felt like she was trying to get an inside track. It felt unprofessional. I shut it down immediately. My grip on the phone tightened. Did she say why she needed the information? She said she was trying to align her proposals, Paul said, the skepticism clear in his voice. It sounded like a weak excuse to me. It felt more like she was trying to get a leg up on the competition. Has she contacted you since? I asked. No, he said. That was the only time. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. Paul, I'm going to be frank with you. This is a sensitive matter. Clara is my sister. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Oh, he said. Wow. I see. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said quickly. I appreciate your honesty. This isn't just an internal review. My sister has been telling people that I work a low-level job, and I have reason to believe she may have been misrepresenting her own work to her superiors, possibly using information she gleaned from me. That's terrible, Paul said, sounding genuinely shocked. Look, I don't know if this helps, but after she emailed me, I mentioned it to a colleague of mine who works at a different agency. He said he'd gotten a similar weird, phishing email from her a week prior. It sounds like she was casting a wide net. Bingo. This was exactly what I needed. She hadn't just contacted him. She was systematically trying to pump people for information. Would your colleague be willing to speak with me? I asked. I can ask him, Paul said. Given the circumstances, I think he would. He didn't like her approach either. Thank you, Paul, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. You've been incredibly helpful. I can assure you this conversation will remain confidential. I hope you get it sorted out, he said, and his voice was kind. Family stuff is tough. After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time just thinking. The picture was getting clearer and darker. Clara hadn't just had a moment of weakness. This was a calculated, premeditated campaign to steal information and climb the corporate ladder on a foundation of lies. And her mockery of me wasn't just casual cruelty. It was a necessary part of her cover story. If everyone believed I was a loser in a dead-end job, no one would ever suspect she was getting her brilliant ideas from me. It was diabolically clever. And it was all about to come crashing down on her. The next piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. 2 days after the party, I was still in a holding pattern. I had spoken to Paul's colleague, who confirmed he had also received a probing email from Clara. I now had 2 documented instances of her attempting to solicit confidential information. It was good, but it still wasn't a smoking gun. It was her word against theirs. She could claim they misunderstood her intentions. My parents had been leaving me increasingly desperate voicemails. My mother cried in one of them, saying I was tearing the family apart by not talking to them. My father was angry, demanding I stop this childish silent treatment. I ignored them all. I was waiting. I didn't know what for, but I knew I wasn't ready to confront them yet. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got an email to my personal account. The sender's name was Ben Carter, and the subject line was simply Clara. I didn't recognize the name. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something made me open it. The email was short. I work with your sister. Or I did. I was at the party on Friday. I heard what she said, and I heard what your CEO said. I think there are some things you should know. Can we talk? I can't do it over email. It's too risky. He left his phone number. My hands were trembling as I read it. A colleague of Clara's. Someone from inside her own company. This could be it. This could be the breakthrough I needed. But it could also be a trap. What if Clara had put him up to it, to find out what I was planning? I thought about it for an hour, weighing the risks. Finally, I decided I had to take the chance. I couldn't ignore a potential witness. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. A young man's voice answered, sounding nervous. Hello. Hi, is this Ben? I asked. Yes, he said. Is this her? Yes, it's me, I said. I got your email. Thank you for calling back, he said, sounding relieved. I was worried you wouldn't. Listen, I know this is weird. I'm a junior account manager at the firm. I worked on Clara's team. Worked? Past tense. I asked. I quit this morning, he said. I couldn't work for her anymore. Not after everything. This was getting interesting. What everything, Ben? He hesitated. It's a lot. Clara is not who she seems to be. She's a bully. She takes credit for other people's work. She lies constantly. That whole visionary marketing plan that got her the promotion? That was my idea. I proposed it 2 months ago, and she shot it down. She said it was stupid. Then, a month later, she presented it to the partners as her own with a few tweaks. When I tried to protest, she threatened to have me fired. My stomach turned. It was worse than I thought. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was stealing from her own team. I'm so sorry, Ben, I said. That's horrible. It is, he said, his voice cracking slightly. But that's not why I called. It's about you. Me?
Yes. She talks about you.
A lot. She was obsessed with you. She told everyone on the team that you were this lazy, unambitious person who leached off your parents. She said you had a brain for numbers but no drive, and that you were wasting your potential in some menial data entry job. It was a gut punch to hear my sister's casual cruelty described so clinically. She used you as a cautionary tale, Ben continued. She'd say things like, "Don't end up like my sister. You have to be hungry in this business." It was her way of motivating us, I guess, by demeaning you. I was silent, absorbing the ugliness of it. But then, a few months ago, she started getting weird, Ben said. She started asking me to do things. She found out somehow that your company, the one you told your family you worked for, was actually a shell company for Omnicorp. She became convinced you were working somewhere inside the parent company. She was paranoid about it. How did she find that out? I asked, my mind racing. I don't know, he said. But she tasked me with finding out what you did. She wanted me to look you up in the internal directory to search for your projects. She said she was worried about you, that she wanted to make sure you weren't in over your head. But it didn't feel like concern. It felt like surveillance. And did you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No, he said firmly. I told her I couldn't find anything. It felt wrong. It was a huge invasion of your privacy. She got furious with me. She said I was being useless. That was when she started really coming after me, micromanaging my work, belittling me in meetings. It was right after that she stole my marketing plan. So that was it. The full, monstrous truth. Her cruelty wasn't random. It was a calculated campaign of sabotage and information gathering, all born from a deep-seated, paranoid jealousy. She suspected I was more successful than I was letting on, and she couldn't stand it. She had to know what I did, and if she couldn't find out, she would just tear me down instead. And when she got a scrap of information from me, she used it, along with her junior's stolen idea, to build her own fraudulent success. Then, I said, my voice thick with emotion, "Is there any proof of this? Any emails? Any messages where she asked you to investigate me?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I held my breath. "Yes," he said finally. "She was stupid. She put it in an email. She sent me a list of keywords to search for in the Omnicorp database. Your name, your college, your old job titles. She wanted a full report. I never deleted it. My heart stopped. The smoking gun. It wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a cannon. An email from a senior director instructing a junior employee to conduct unauthorized surveillance on another employee of the parent company. It was a fireable offense on multiple levels. It was career suicide in writing. Then, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and vindication, "Can you send it to me?" "I already did," he said. "I forwarded the entire chain to your personal email address right before I called you. I also sent a copy to my personal lawyer and to the HR department at my old firm. I'm not letting her get away with what she did to me. And she shouldn't get away with what she did to you." I quickly opened my laptop and went to my inbox. And there it was. An email with the subject line, "Weekend Project." I clicked on it. And I saw everything. The instructions from Clara. Her frustrated follow-ups. Her angry accusations when he reported he had found nothing. It was all there in black and white. A slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile of grim satisfaction. The game was over. I had won. Now I just had to decide how to checkmate. The email from Ben was the final piece. I now had a complete picture of Clara's deception. It was a multi-pronged attack born of pure jealousy. She had been investigating me, belittling me, stealing from her own team, and lying to her superiors. The promotion she was so proud of was a house of cards built on my unwitting help and Ben's stolen work. I spent the rest of the day in a state of quiet, focused anger. The sadness was gone, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I knew what I had to do. This couldn't be resolved with a quiet conversation. It couldn't be fixed with a tearful apology. This required a public reckoning. She had humiliated me publicly. I would expose her publicly. Not in front of a room full of strangers, but in front of the two people who had enabled her behavior for her entire life. Our parents. I called my mother. She answered immediately, her voice a frantic mess. "Oh, thank God you called. We've been so worried. Your father and we just don't understand what's happening. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom," I said, my voice devoid of warmth. "I'm calling to tell you that I'm coming over for dinner on Saturday." There was a surprised silence. "Oh," she said. "Well, that's wonderful, dear. We'd love to have you. Should I invite Clara?" "You must invite Clara," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "It's a family matter. We all need to be there. Tell her it's important." "Okay," my mother said, sounding both relieved and nervous. "We'll see you Saturday at 7 then." I hung up without saying goodbye. The stage was set. For the next 3 days, I prepared. I printed out all the evidence. The email from Clara to Paul, the statement from Paul's colleague, and the entire, damning email chain between Clara and Ben. I put them in a neat folder. I rehearsed what I was going to say in my head over and over. I wanted my words to be precise, unemotional, and irrefutable. I wasn't going to yell or cry. I was going to present my case like a prosecutor. Maya called me every day, acting as my coach. "How are you feeling?" she asked the night before the dinner. "Like I'm about to walk into a lion's den," I admitted. "You're not walking in," Maya corrected me. "You are the lion. Remember that. You have all the power.
They're scared of you right now.
Don't forget it." Her words helped. I went to bed that night feeling a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened tomorrow, it would be the end of an era. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 7 o'clock on Saturday. My father opened the door, his face a mixture of anxiety and forced cheerfulness. "You're here," he said a little too loudly.
Come in, come in."
I walked into the familiar living room. My mother was fussing with some flowers on the mantelpiece, her movements jerky. Clara was sitting on the couch, staring into her wine glass. She looked terrible. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her usually perfect posture was slumped. She didn't look at me when I came in. The air in the room was thick with unspoken words. My parents tried to fill the silence with nervous chatter about the weather, about a neighbor's new car, about anything other than the giant, throbbing elephant in the room. I let them. I sat in the armchair opposite Clara and waited. We ate dinner in near total silence. It was the most uncomfortable meal of my life. My mother kept trying to start conversations, but they would die out after a few sentences. Clara just pushed her food around her plate. I ate slowly, deliberately, meeting my parents' worried glances with a calm, steady gaze. Finally, when my mother brought out dessert, I decided it was time. I placed my fork down on my plate. "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. 3 pairs of eyes snapped to me. "About what happened at the party," I continued, looking directly at Clara. Clara flinched, but didn't speak. "Your sister is right," my father said, jumping in. "We're all very confused, and there's been a huge misunderstanding. I'm sure Clara didn't mean what she said." "Oh, I think she meant every word, I said calmly. The problem is, the words were based on a lie. A lie that all three of you have been telling yourselves for a very long time. That's not fair, my mother whispered, her eyes welling up with tears. We love you both equally. No, you don't, I said, my voice still quiet, still controlled. You love the idea of Clara, the successful one. And you pity me, the one who couldn't keep up. You've spent my entire life making me feel less than her. And you, I said, turning my full attention to my sister. You have built your entire identity on that lie. Clara finally looked at me, her eyes blazing with a familiar, defensive anger. I have no idea what you're talking about, she spat. I got that promotion because I worked my butt off. I earned it. You're just jealous because for once in your life you can't stand that I'm more successful than you. The sheer audacity of her words, after everything that had happened, was breathtaking. I almost laughed. More successful? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Is that what you call it? Because I have a different word for it. I call it fraud. Clara's face paled. How dare you?
I dare, I said.
I reached down and picked up the folder I had placed by my chair. I opened it and took out the first document. Let's start with your brilliant marketing plan. The one that was so perfectly aligned with Omnicorp's Q4 strategy.
It was a good plan.
Especially the parts of it that a junior manager on your team named Ben Carter came up with 2 months before you presented it as your own. Clara's jaw dropped. She looked utterly stunned. You spoke to him? He contacted me. I corrected her. He quit his job because he couldn't stand working for a thief and a bully anymore. That's a lie. Clara shrieked, jumping to her feet. He's a disgruntled employee. He's making it up. Is he? I asked, my voice still dangerously calm. I pulled out the next document. Is Paul at the subsidiary company also a disgruntled employee? Is his colleague at the other agency also making things up? Because I have emails from you to both of them, fishing for confidential information about the company's strategy. The same strategy you asked me about on the phone, by the way. I tossed the printed emails onto the table. My parents stared at them, their faces masks of horror. This is insane, Clara stammered, backing away from the table. You're twisting things. I was just networking, doing my job. Was it also part of your job to instruct your subordinate to conduct a secret investigation into me? I asked, my voice dropping to an icy whisper. Was it part of your job to try and dig up dirt on your own sister, an executive at your parent company? I took out the final email chain, the one between her and Ben.
I didn't toss this one.
I stood up and walked around the table, holding it out to her. Read it, Clara, I said. Read your own words. Read the part where you order him to find my project files. Read the part where you call him useless because he couldn't help you sabotage me. She stared at the paper in my hand as if it were a snake. She wouldn't take it. Her whole body was trembling. She started, but no words came out. I turned to my parents. They looked broken. My father had his face in his hands. My mother was openly weeping. This is what you created, I told them, my voice finally shaking with the years of suppressed pain. Your golden child, the one you were so proud of. She's a liar, a cheat, and a fraud. Her success is built on the work of other people, people she bullies and belittles. And her favorite person to belittle has always been me. And you just stood by and watched. You encouraged it. I looked back at Clara. Her face had crumpled. The anger was gone, replaced by a raw, ugly fear. She knew she was caught. I am standing there, the email still in my hand. The air is thick with the truth. My mother is sobbing. We didn't know, she says, her voice a pathetic whimper. We never knew. You didn't want to know, I reply, my voice hard as stone. It was easier to believe I was the problem. Clara finally breaks. She sinks back into her chair, a choked sob escaping her lips. I'm sorry, she whispers, the words barely audible. I was so jealous. I always have been. Her confession hangs in the air, pathetic and small. It's the first honest thing she said all night, but it's too little, Too late. The apology feels hollow, a desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Jealousy doesn't give you the right to try and ruin my life, I say, my voice flat. I drop the emails onto the table in front of her. The HR department at your old firm has copies of all of this. So does Ben's lawyer. So does Mr. Thompson. The last name hits her like a physical blow. Her head jerks up, her eyes wide with terror. You told Mr. Thompson? He deserved to know that one of his senior directors was a corporate spy who built her career on plagiarism and deceit, I say. He was very interested. The fight goes out of her completely. She just sits there, staring at the papers on the table, the evidence of her own destruction. She is no longer the glittering, confident woman from the party. She is just a scared, defeated person who has been caught in a web of her own making. I look at my parents. I'm done, I tell them. I am done being the family secret. I am done being the family disappointment. From now on, you will treat me with respect. You will acknowledge who I am and what I have achieved. And you will get to know your daughter, the real one, not the caricature you've had in your heads for 26 years. Or you will not have a daughter at all. I turn and walk out of the dining room. I don't look back. I grab my coat, walk out the front door, and get in my car. As I drive away, I don't feel triumph. I don't feel joy. I just feel empty. The battle is over, but the war has left scars. The days that followed were quiet, eerily so. No one from my family tried to contact me. It was as if a switch had been flipped. The constant barrage of texts and calls was replaced by a profound silence. For the first few days, it was a relief. I worked, I saw Maya. I started to feel like myself again. I had a long, productive call with Mr. Thompson. He was appalled by what I had uncovered, but deeply impressed with how I had handled it. You are professional and decisive, he said. Those are the qualities I saw in your analytical work. I'm glad to see they extend to your personal conduct as well. Let me be clear. What your sister did was a grave breach of our company's code of conduct. We have terminated our contract with her former firm, effective immediately. And we are supporting Ben Carter in any legal action he chooses to take. It was a swift and decisive consequence. Clara hadn't just lost her job, she had gotten her entire company fired. The ripple effects of her actions were spreading. A week after the dinner, Ben called me. I just wanted to say thank you, he said, his voice stronger than it had been before. I got a call from a lawyer today. Omnicorp is backing my wrongful termination claim. And I've had 2 job offers already. It seems like word has gotten around about what Clara did. No one wants to touch her, but a lot of people were impressed that I stood up to her. I'm so glad to hear that, Ben, I said, a genuine smile on my face. You deserve it. The world was rebalancing itself. The good guys were winning. But I still hadn't heard from my family. The silence was starting to feel less like peace and more like a punishment. Were they angry with me? Were they shunning me for exposing their perfect daughter? The answer came in the form of a letter. It arrived on a Thursday, in my mother's neat, looping handwriting. I opened it with a sense of dread. But it wasn't an angry letter. It was a letter of apology. A real one. She wrote about how my confrontation had forced both her and my father to take a long, hard look at themselves. She admitted that they had favored Clara, that they had pushed her to succeed because her success reflected well on them. She wrote that they had failed to see me for who I was, and that their blindness had caused me unimaginable pain. She said they were ashamed of themselves and of the daughter they had raised Clara to be. We are going to family counseling, she wrote at the end. All 3 of us. Clara is not well. She has lost everything. Her job, her reputation. Her boyfriend broke up with her. She needs help. We all do. We know we have no right to ask for your forgiveness. We just want you to know that we are trying to be better. We hope that one day you'll be willing to talk to us again. We love you. I read the letter twice. The words were the ones I had longed to hear my entire life. But hearing them now felt complicated. A part of me was relieved. But another part was angry that it had taken a nuclear bomb to get them to see the truth. I didn't reply to the letter. Not right away. I needed time. A few months passed. Life went on. I excelled at my job. Mr. Thompson became a true mentor to me. I was given more responsibility, more challenging projects. I felt confident and capable. I was thriving. I saw Maya regularly. I even started dating someone, a kind, funny architect who was impressed by my intelligence and had no idea about my family's drama. One day, I got a text from an unknown number. "It's Clara. Can we please talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it, but then a different feeling surfaced. It wasn't anger or pity. It was curiosity. I texted back a single word, "Okay." We met at a quiet coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of us frequented. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. The glittering, confident woman was gone. In her place was a pale, thin version of my sister. She wore no makeup, and her clothes were simple and drab. She looked small. She sat down opposite me and didn't meet my eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice a hoarse whisper. "Why did you want to meet, Clara?" I asked, my tone neutral. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were full of a pain so raw it startled me. "I wanted to apologize," she said, properly, with no one else around. "What I did to you was monstrous. There's no excuse for it. I was a monster." She told me about the therapy. She told me about how losing everything had forced her to confront the ugly, jealous person she had become. She said her entire sense of self-worth had been tied to being the successful one, and the thought that I might be more successful than her, in secret, had driven her insane. "I spent my whole life competing with you," she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "But I was the only one playing the game. You were just trying to live your life."
I'm so sorry.
"For everything." I listened to her, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than anger. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. It was the beginning of a possibility. "I hear you," I said quietly, "and I appreciate you saying that. But it's going to take a long time for me to trust you again, Clara. A very long time." "I know," she said, nodding. "I don't expect you to. I needed you to know that I'm trying. I got a new job. It's an entry-level position at a small nonprofit. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. I'm starting over." We sat in silence for a few more minutes. The chasm between us was still there, vast and deep. But for the first time, it felt like there might, someday, be a bridge. When we left, we didn't hug. We just said a quiet goodbye. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. The old story of me and my sister was over. A new one, uncertain and fragile, was just beginning. I eventually started talking to my parents again.
Our relationship is different now.
It's more honest, but also more distant. The old, easy dynamic is gone, and I'm not sure it will ever come back. But they're trying. They ask me about my work, and they listen. They tell me they're proud of me, and for the first time, I believe them. My life is my own now. It's not defined by my family's expectations or my sister's jealousy. It's defined by my own achievements, my own choices. The party that was meant to be my greatest humiliation turned out to be my liberation. Clara set out to call me a loser in front of the world. Instead, she revealed to the world, and to me, what I was all along, a winner playing a game she didn't even know existed. For the first time, the silence in my family wasn't my shame. It was theirs. And it was the sound of my new beginning.